Zaradvara stepped off her ship and into the chaotic embrace of Solara 9, the human colony bustling with life. The air was thick with an intoxicating mix of unfamiliar scents, spices, smoke, and something sweet that made her nostrils flare. She hesitated, her heart racing. This world was vibrant and chaotic, a stark contrast to the sterile environment of Serenus Prime, where emotions were measured and controlled. The market was alive with color. Stalls overflowed with fruits she couldn't name and strange textiles that seemed to shimmer under the warm sun. Laughter erupted from a group of children chasing each other, their joy so raw and unrestrained it made her chest tighten. Zara felt like a ghost, drifting through a realm of vitality she had never dared to experience. She clutched her data pad, its cold metal a comforting anchor against the whirl of sensations. Look at that one. A voice called out, drawing her attention. A cluster of humans pointed in her direction, their eyes wide with curiosity. Zara's skin prickled, she could feel their stares as if they were tangible threads tugging at her. She straightened, her spine rigid, attempting to mask her discomfort with the practiced calm of her upbringing. Just as she turned to leave, she collided with a solid form. The impact sent her data pad clattering to the ground. Whoa, careful there. Looking up, she met the gaze of a man whose presence seemed to radiate warmth. Captain Jackson Reeve stood before her, his rugged features softened by a mischievous grin. Sunlight danced in his dark hair, framing his face like a halo. He was unlike anyone she had ever seen, his confidence was palpable, an unsettling contrast to her own anxiety. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to send you flying, he said, bending down to retrieve her data pad. His fingers brushed against hers, and she felt a spark, a surge of something alien that made her heart race. Zara swallowed, her voice a mere whisper. I was just trying to keep your head on straight. Welcome to Solara 9, where it's all about the chaos. He laughed, the sound rich and genuine, pulling her into the warmth of his presence. I'm Jackson, by the way. Zara, she replied, forcing the word past her lips. His name rolled in her mind, igniting a curiosity she had long suppressed. What was it about him that made her heart flutter against the confines of her careful upbringing? Are you here for the festival? Jackson asked, his gaze fixed on her with an intensity that sent her pulse racing. I'm here on business, she said, the weight of her true purpose hanging in the air like a storm cloud. The specter of her mission loomed over her, an emissary of the Sereni Imperium, sent to observe and report. Fear gripped her heart, allowing herself to feel anything here was dangerous. Business? He raised an eyebrow. Amusement dancing in his eyes. You're in for a treat then. Humans throw the best parties. How about I show you around? Zara hesitated, her mind battling her instincts. The allure of his charm was intoxicating, but the fear of vulnerability clutched at her. Yet, in that moment, something shifted within her. Okay, she finally said, surprising even herself. As she took a step toward him, the chaos of Solara 9 faded into the background, and for the first time, she felt a flicker of hope amidst her uncertainty. The tavern was a cacophony of sounds, laughter, clinking glasses, and the melodic strumming of a lute. Zaradvara stepped through the doorway, her senses assaulted by the rich aroma of roasted meats and the inviting warmth of flickering lanterns. She hadn't expected to find comfort in a place like this, a sanctuary among the chaos of Solara 9. But as she scanned the room, her eyes landed on Jackson, seated at a wooden table, a hearty meal before him and an open invitation in his grin. Glad you could join me, he called, waving her over. His demeanor was relaxed, his body language open, as if they were old friends instead of mere acquaintances from an alien world. Looks like you've been busy, she replied, taking a seat across from him. The table was a riot of colors, filled with dishes she had never encountered, something stewed, something grilled, and a vibrant, bubbling brew that sparkled under the candlelight. You have no idea, Jackson said, gesturing toward the food. You have to try this. It's called spice-glazed meat. He pushed a plate toward her, his eyes dancing with excitement. Best in the galaxy, I swear. Zara hesitated, eyeing the unfamiliar textures and scents. But something in Jackson's infectious enthusiasm drew her in. She took a tentative bite, and the flavors exploded on her tongue, a harmony of savory and sweet that sent waves of warmth through her. See? Told you. He exclaimed, leaning back, satisfaction etched across his face. What do you think? It's incredible, she admitted, surprised by her own delight. I've never tasted anything like it. Their conversation flowed easily. An ebb and flow of shared stories and laughter. Jackson spoke of his childhood, of the mischief he and his friends had concocted, while Zara recounted tales from her home planet, stories of serene skies and the strict protocols of Serene society. With every word, she peeled away layers of her carefully constructed armor, finding comfort in the chaos of his world. Why did you really come here, Zara? Jackson asked suddenly, his gaze piercing through her defenses. The question hung heavy between them, laden with unspoken fears. She faltered, her instincts screaming to retreat. I came to learn, she said carefully, dancing around the truth. To observe your people. Observe? He leaned closer. His tone playful but serious. You mean spy? Zara's heart raced. It's more complicated than that, she whispered, the weight of her secret pressing down on her. Before she could finish, a raucous group of humans burst through the door, their laughter spilling into the quiet corners of the tavern. They were boisterous and carefree, the embodiment of everything she had been taught to fear. Zara stiffened, her earlier ease dissipating. Jackson noticed her tension and placed a reassuring hand over hers. Hey, it's just a celebration. You're safe here. Safe. The word echoed in her mind, a strange concept that felt foreign and exhilarating. As she looked into Jackson's warm gaze, a flicker of something deeper ignited within her, an undeniable connection that made her heart race. Do you ever get scared? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Of course, he admitted, his honesty refreshing. But it's worth it. Facing fears can lead to something incredible. Zara pondered his words, the walls around her heart trembling. She wanted to believe that she could embrace this world, this warmth, and the man who seemed to see her for who she truly was, more than just a Serene envoy, more than a mere observer. But even as hope flickered, shadows of doubt loomed in the distance. Her true mission lingered like a specter, waiting to shatter the fragile peace she had found. And the more she allowed herself to feel, the more perilous her situation became. The festival pulsed around Zaradvara like a living entity, its vibrant energy wrapping her in a cocoon of colors and sounds. Lanterns twinkled above, casting a kaleidoscope of hues over the throngs of revelers. Jackson led her through the crowd, his laughter infectious as he navigated the bustling streets of Solara 9. For a moment, she allowed herself to forget the weight of her mission, losing herself in the thrill of the moment. Over here. He called, pulling her toward a booth adorned with dazzling artifacts. Trinkets made from shimmering stones caught the light, sparking a sense of wonder in her. This is my favorite stall. You have to see the crystal orbs. As they explored, Zara found herself captivated not just by the objects, but by Jackson, the way he moved through the crowd, his confidence radiating like a beacon. Every smile exchanged with a passerby, every spontaneous dance he performed, made her heart flutter with a mix of admiration and longing. Do you really like this place? She asked, her curiosity bubbling over. Like it? He laughed, picking up a small orb and holding it up to the light. I love it. It's chaotic and messy and real. It's everything I need to feel alive. Zara nodded, feeling the tug of something she had never allowed herself to acknowledge, an insatiable yearning for authenticity that had been stifled on Serenus Prime. But as they continued, an unsettling shift swept through the crowd. Zara's instincts flared, a warning bell ringing in her mind. The air thickened with tension, and she felt it before she saw it, a group of cloaked figures lurking at the edge of the festival, their presence dark and foreboding. Jackson, do you see them? She whispered, her heart pounding. See who? He turned, scanning the crowd, but they were just out of sight, hidden within the shadows. Those cloaked figures, something's off about them. Probably just a bunch of tourists trying to look mysterious, he shrugged, but Zara couldn't shake the feeling gnawing at her insides. As if sensing her discomfort, Jackson leaned closer. His voice low and urgent. Let's get some food. I know a place that serves the best grilled skewers. You'll love it. Okay, she replied, but her mind was elsewhere, focused on the figures who seemed to be watching her. When they reached the food stall, the vendor greeted them with boisterous cheer, but Zara barely registered his words. Her thoughts raced, weaving a narrative of paranoia. She could feel eyes on her, the weight of unseen watchers that made her skin crawl. What's wrong? Jackson asked, his voice laced with concern as he caught her distracted gaze. Just a feeling, she admitted, forcing a smile. I think we should go back to the tavern. His brow furrowed, but he nodded, taking her hand as they retraced their steps. The crowd seemed to thicken, the laughter and music fading into a dull roar. And then, in a flash of movement, the cloaked figures broke free from the shadows, their intentions unmistakable as they closed in on Zara. Zara! Jackson shouted, pulling her closer as he scanned the area. What's happening? Panic surged through her. I don't know. She gasped, but a deeper fear gripped her, fear not just for herself but for the burgeoning connection she felt with him. The cloaked figures surged forward, and as their hoods fell back, Zara's heart dropped. They were enforcers from the Serene Imperium, sent to retrieve her. To take her back before she jeopardized their careful plans. Zara Dvara. One called out, voice cold and authoritative. You are ordered to return. Jackson's grip tightened around her wrist. What do they want with you? Run! She urged, her voice trembling as the weight of her reality crashed down around her. The joyous festival transformed into a nightmare, the vibrant colors dissolving into an ominous darkness as the chase began. The night exploded into chaos as Zara Dvara and Jackson fled through the winding alleys of Solara 9. The pulsating lights of the festival dimmed behind them, replaced by the stark shadows of narrow passageways that seemed to close in around them. Zara's heart raced. A wild drumbeat against the suffocating grip of fear. The enforcers were relentless, their shouts echoing off the walls, pursuing them with a determination that made her blood run cold. Where do we go? Jackson gasped, his breath coming in ragged bursts as they turned a sharp corner. They're gaining on us. Anywhere but here. Zara replied, her mind racing. She had always been taught to follow the protocols of the Serene, to keep her distance from human emotions, but now all she felt was the urgency to protect what little she had. Jackson, this moment, this world. They skidded to a stop as a dead end loomed before them, a brick wall rising ominously, cutting off any escape. Jackson looked around frantically, then turned to her, his eyes wide with fear. What now? Climb! Zara shouted, spotting a stack of crates nearby. She dashed toward them, her body moving on instinct. Jackson followed, his hands steadying her as she scrambled up the crates, reaching for the ledge above. Help me! She cried, and he surged up behind her, their fingers brushing against each other, a fleeting connection that sent sparks of electricity through her. With one final push, they both hoisted themselves up onto the rooftop, the cool night air sweeping over them like a bomb. They crouched low, catching their breath, the sounds of the festival muffled by the distance. Below them, the alley was filled with the frantic calls of the enforcers as they searched for their quarry. Are you okay? Jackson asked, concern etched across his face. I'm fine, Zara breathed, but her heart ached with the weight of their predicament. But I can't go back. If they take me, they'll what? He pressed, urgency coursing through his words. You can't let them get you. They'll force me back to Serenus Prime, she whispered, her voice cracking. To the life I was meant to live, the life that doesn't include this. You. Then don't go back, he said, his eyes fierce with resolve. You have a choice, Zara. We both do. His words struck her like a thunderclap. The fear that had gripped her heart loosened, replaced by a flicker of hope and the thrill of rebellion. Could she really defy the Imperium? "We can't stay here," she said, her voice steadying. "They'll search the rooftops." "Then let's go," he replied, determination lining his features. "There's a way out through the old service tunnels. I know where they are." "Lead the way," Zara urged, the weight of her decision settling in her chest. She was no longer merely an observer in this world. She was a part of it, a living, breathing participant in a life filled with uncertainty and possibility. As they moved silently across the rooftops, Zara felt the thrill of freedom coursing through her veins. The darkness around them was not merely a shroud of fear, it was an open canvas, waiting for them to paint their future. Jackson reached a rusted hatch and pulled it open, a staircase leading into the unknown. He turned to her, his expression earnest. "Are you ready?" Zara looked into his eyes, the warmth there igniting a spark of courage within her. "I am." Together, they descended into the shadows, leaving the chaos behind. They had chosen their path, and whatever awaited them below, they would face it together. The adventure was just beginning, and with each step, Zara felt the chains of her past breaking away, piece by piece. The world ahead shimmered with the promise of something extraordinary.